The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome.
We're going to keep that in.
Yeah, maybe. Welcome back to the AI Shift. And I say welcome back. Hopefully you've listened to episode 0 and enjoyed our ramblings. If not, go back, listen to that, get a feel for what this is all about. But anyway, welcome to episode 1. And we're going to talk about the brighter future that AI is going to bring us, and all hail our AI overlords. Just in case they start watching and listening back to these things in the future, we didn't say anything bad. Thank you very much to our AI overlords. Yeah, Lee, this is I think a topic that you've broached. So do you want to take it away? Let's start off the episode with yourself.
When new technology kind of comes along, typically it goes in this kind of arc of early adopters, and then people come through, and it kind of grows like that. And it normally kind of takes 10 years, realistically. I think this AI shift is going to happen a lot quicker, or is happening a lot quicker. And as a result of that, the peaks and troughs of job displacement, people need to be reskilled, systems being to change, is becoming more and more kind of, it's more highs and more lows, right? So I myself have kind of gone through that at moments where I've been like, all of software development is over, developers all have gone, like there is no more software development, because non-developers will be able to build whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, because of the tooling and the technology will enable them to do so. I have now settled with, I'm of the believer now, I think the next 3 years are going to be kind of referred back in history as like the golden era of, I wouldn't say software development, but like software creation. Because you have all these people who have spent decades upon decades building stuff in a hard way. Even if we add all the frameworks and all the different processes and everything to try and adapt to do these things, building software is complicated. And because of these tools now, I think people can build quicker, build more with a smaller team, or even individually, and start building some really interesting stuff that they would never normally get to do because it would be cost prohibiting or time prohibiting or skill prohibiting. And I think we're just going to see some really cool stuff over the next 3 years. What happens beyond then, we'll see.
Yeah.
The robot overlords and all.
So like 3 years seems like a real short timeline, but like, as I've said previously, 6 months ago, AI wasn't doing as much as it is now. So it's coming along real quick, right? It's changing things real quick. The issue I see with 3 years is that enterprise doesn't move that quickly. So like the startups and that are out there, and those early adopter companies, they're making the shift, and they're adopting a lot of these AI technologies, bring them into the processes. But for real enterprise developers, which I would say the majority of developers out there are, it's probably not gonna be that soon to change that, right?
I don't. You're right to a degree. I think it'll still be accelerated, but what I mean is I don't think it's necessarily like that software development or developers will change in that time. I just think looking at the landscape of the tooling and looking at I feel like we've all, like those who are in this space, I feel like we've learned all the lessons, right? We've learned how, what works, what doesn't work, the hassle, both from an AI implementation point of view, but just generally from building software over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I feel like it's all just kind of coming together. And I think we basically have the next 3 years where the tooling and the systems is going to be advanced enough to really mean that we can build stuff very efficiently, very quick, very well architected, and non-developers won't be able to. They'll be able to do like some proof of concept. They'll be able to do some like prototype stuff and things, and build some basic or integrated systems. But to build like a full enterprise-ready solution, I think is still going to stay within the world of developers. But I think for the next I don't know after 3 years. After 3 years, maybe it completely goes, right? But I think the next 3 years, I think there's a window of time where all of that decades of experience that we've had amalgamates into a window where we can build amazing stuff for ourselves, like our own products, our own services, and also build stuff that maybe we couldn't build before, or projects we couldn't be involved with before because of cost or because of team size and available skill sets or anything like that. And that's what I think. I just think there's a window for. I think we're going to see some really cool stuff over the next 3 years. I suppose that's probably the overarching bit, and then that will typically be from a software development driven attitude, and and the people involved in that piece. I don't think it's going to come from like the other departments yet. I think they need the tools. They need the coding tools to get better for them to have the freedom. For a designer to think, I want to create this, and have the benefit and the up thing of being a designer. I don't think the tooling's there to give them that freedom and have everything built to an enterprise level ready,
Sure.
Scale.
It kind of chimes in with that the developers are still going to be, they're still going to need to be in control and still review what's being built, because they've seen like the quality and maybe the functionality that's being built is not quite as described. Even when you describe it down to the nth degree, give it a good spec, it's still not quite getting it right, but it's good enough for a proof of concept or an MVP. But yeah, when it's going out a little bit further, you need to have that experienced set of eyes on it.
But I still don't think that person's then doing it, right? They're just using their experience and their background.
Yeah, they're using the experience to build it. What I was going to say is that Joe Public or the non-technical employee is not going to be able to build these apps and get them production ready at the moment. They could sort of put something together and bring it to somebody like ourselves and go, look, we've got this very early proof of concept. This is kind of what we want to do. Can you build that out? And it could just be us helping them work with the software, with the AI to build it out a little bit more and give it experience. I've
had that scenario recently, right? Someone came to me and they used Google Stitch, which is like a prototyping tool, and they built something out, and they were like, I want to build this tool. And they tried to use like, I think they tried Lovable as well, and they tried to basically build this thing. And again, it worked until they wanted to make a decent change. And then, even it sounds silly, but like we take for granted the ability that we know how to register domains, change DNSs, add secure kind of records for email, run CDNs, like add security. Do you know what I mean? Like all this stuff that that these services currently don't kind of cater for. Like even just that, like the kind of the DevOps kind of InfoSec stuff. When you actually want to build something for customers as a product, that mindset and knowledge, I think, is still massively valuable.
Yeah, and I think that those of us that have been in the industry for a long time can really benefit from using this technology, and that we're able to use it and get a good output because we understand what's being output. We can read through it and go, yes, this is right. It's concerning that it's going to make it easier and harder for new developers coming up, because they're going to see less and less of it. And like I always describe, like we've cut our teeth in the industry really with .NET, and I always describe that as pretend programming. It's like building with Lego. You take bits of other people's thing, and all we're doing is writing the glue that holds all those other bits together. Those Lego bits with AI have become more like Duplo. and maybe even bigger than that. And right now, the state that the AI is in, that what's produced, you've got to know what it's producing to be able to review it. In several years' time, that won't matter, right? Because what a lot of developers completely miss is that they're employed to build a solution. They're not employed to write pretty code, and they spend a lot of time writing pretty code and implementing all these patterns and all this like fluff because it's cool and it makes them a better developer. But a business owner doesn't give a damn about that, right? They just want something that works and something that gets it done. And is it the most optimal way of doing it? Maybe not, but is it good enough to get the solution done to get what the business needs out of it? When
You can probably have both worlds
that's
now.
good enough, right?
But you wrote both worlds now, right? Because all these models for coding in particular have been trained on the corpus of GitHub open source, right? So it understands how to architecturally build great stuff. When I get it built by code now, and like I look at it, I'm like, that's way better than I would have done, And it's,
yeah, but that probably says more about your coding skills than.
Very true. Yes. When you are comparing it to Duplo, but you're right, because I kind of take it as like I feel like I'm employed when I work at companies to build the solution, right? The code bit and how what patterns and what architecture and stuff it should be built in should be second nature. And unfortunately, I think there's been a long time there's been that shift that actually that's become the priority. Most developers will pick a new framework to use, not because it's the right thing for the project, it's because they want to have a play with a new technology, right? So, and they can't justify doing it, for a non-project, so they do it on something that something at work type of thing. So, for me, I think this whole 3-year golden era that I kind of mentioned at the beginning is because I think developers will be able to solutionize and actually think like, what is this thing being built? And then they're going to oversee the code, and they're going to make architectural decisions, and some of that will be some will be proper code, like full-on code, some will be pseudocode in specs, some will be diagrams and documents that's instructing and orchestrating the AI to build. But still, I do think it brings it up again. I think that there's the biggest win for me personally has been over the last 6 months, last year or so, is I've always been someone who can build everything, right? Again, the generalist of all, the expert of none. And I could basically I can do the DevOps, I can do testing, I can do build, And there was always this perception that one developer can't do all of that stuff. But if you work for yourself and you contract and you do your own things, you have to. Like it's just it's just the way it kind of goes. And I think AI because AI has now entered the zeitgeist of like this will solve everyone's problem. Outside of technology, it's enabled those people who have done that thing to be like, oh no, I use AI to help me, and that's allowed. Like people are like, oh yeah, cool. Like now they will allow one person to come and build a system because AI is helping them and assisting them to do it. Whereas before, that was seen as a kind of a key man problem.
Yeah. I've definitely had that problem in the past where I've come in and to look at a project, and maybe the in-house team just wasn't capable. They didn't have the experience or the knowledge to do it. And I've sort of said, I can write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, be the lead star. I'll produce the film, I'll do the trailers, and I'll do all the promotion. And it's kind of seen as like, well, yeah, really? Can you do that? And I guess it tilts or taints our perception of what's possible, because there's a lot of people out there that are, and this isn't to dismiss their skill sets, but they're one-trick pony, right? They just do back-end, they just do databases, or they just do CSS, or they're just project management. These sort of tools, they look at them and they go, oh, well, I can use that to help me do my one thing. Whereas people with our mindset look at it and go, well, this can help us do everything, right? And we're already doing everything, but we can do it
Yeah,
even
this gives me a
better, right?
team.
Yeah,
Like, yes,
yeah.
I like my design skills are square boxes with red and blue and yellow, but now I have an AI that has been trained on and can design like a
You
famous
could use
insert famous
purple as well
designer's
now.
name. Maybe. Let's not get crazy now. But yeah, and I think and then you have them, and then testing, security, all these things that again needed, etc. But these are the things that sometimes will fall through the cracks. And but I do think, therefore, like there is this golden time now for, I don't want to call it like solo founders, solo creators, because there is that as well. But I think there's a term that's needed, which is like a solo engineer who has basically kind of worked for themselves along the way. They've had to learn all the stuff, so all that knowledge is in there, right? And now they can utilize this technology to basically have a digital team around them that's basically just covering their back on the bits that they either are not fully strong on or just context switching, right? And then
Yeah.
they do something, you go, can you just check this? And they go, oh, there's 8 security vulnerabilities in this. Whereas if you've been doing it and you've been focusing on it, then probably you would have found them. But again, there's just something kind of that's got your back, like you would have in a team. Now, obviously, like this is very much drinking my Kool-Aid because like I'm kind of describing myself, like ourselves in this scenario. So there is an element of self kind of bias here. But I think it's the reality, right? And then it's a case of like, how does that then, if it is the case, then how does that then, what does that mean for software teams? What does that mean for, working with companies and all these different things? And hopefully, through the episodes, we can, talk to people who work in all these different departments and have these different skill sets to understand their exposure. Because from my perspective, I look at this now and I'm like, this is awesome. I can build all this stuff, which I could kind of do before, but I can build it and be confident that the issues around it will be much less than they probably were before, because it'll catch stuff. And there's an acceptance from society and from business and from organizations that a person can do this.
Yeah. But you're calling that the golden age of software. The software industry at the moment is, I'd say, not in the best shape due to pandemics that happened. And there's a lot of layoffs that happened in the United States, and they've sort of had ripple effects across the UK and Europe. And there's people already fighting for jobs, right? In the 20 odd years that I've been a software developer, it's always been an employee market, and I've been fighting off, like, as a permie, I was fighting off jobs sort of 3 or 4 at a time. Whereas the last couple of years, it's been tough out there. Do you think that AI is going to make that worse? Because now what needed like a 10-man team, you've got one person working on this project now. I see the benefits of it, like, because I'd often come in and per meeting we go, oh, we can't build this project, it's not possible, and I've delivered the project in a matter of days or hours or months or whatever. And I know that I had a conversation with one of my clients, quite a big enterprise in the UK, that their call center team wanted something changing, and I looked at it and went, what's the point, right? You've got a person that earns X amount a month, and it costs them. So you work out how much it's going to cost them to do this workaround, right, to this problem. So I worked that out, and then I worked out how much it was going to cost in developer time to fix the problem. And it worked out it was cheaper to have that one person do the workaround for 10 years than it was to have the developers fix it. And in 10 years' time, that probably wouldn't be a problem because their systems would have been swapped out, and we didn't make the change. But now, with the AI stuff, we could have probably done that change in a couple of days, if not hours. So like I see that benefit, but if we're reducing the barrier for how long it takes for some of these problems to be fixed, are we not also destroying the employment market in the industry?
I don't think so. I think a reconfiguration, like all sci-fi films say. I always think that software. I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago about like SaaS in particular, and I feel like we were lied to, right, with software as a service. Basically, before software as a service, you had these massive systems like mainframes. You had to buy hardware; it cost you millions. And then SaaS came along, and they were like, "Look, we're going to build a product. It's going to live in the cloud. You're going to pay per user, and every month new features are going to come out. So you're going to pay an amount, and you're going to benefit from it over the long term, right? And it's going to keep just getting better and better." And that happened probably for like a couple of years, and then them SaaS companies became the behemoth that they replaced. And then they did the same. Like you try and use any tried to cancel an Adobe subscription. Like it is the most painful thing known to man, and that is classed as a SaaS platform, right? So and most SaaS platforms now, the Salesforces, the XYZ, they're now seen as the behemoths that they once were. And we don't get the quality. You can't call one of these companies like to complain or to file something. So I think it's one of them ones where you're kind of looking and you go, all that stuff has existed, and there's all these developers working at these big companies, and I think they're just fixing rubbish, right? They're keeping the sellotape together. They're kind of keeping the machine going. Now, what if them developers, which let's just say one of these teams, maybe there's like 100 devs there, right? That organization, maybe they optimize some stuff and they lay off half the team. So they lay off 50 devs. Them 50 developers, realistically, were probably doing quite boring work, or quite a high proportion of their thing was boring stuff. They now have an opportunity because them 50 can now turn into 10 teams of 5, and they can actually build stuff that they actually want. So they could build a competitor to the existing product they just was let go from. They could build something else that they're passionate about. And that team of 5 people, I think, my belief is they will be able to build and scale a business that is much more, not bigger necessarily, but like they can basically live a life, right? They can afford a life, they can have a nice thing. They're going to go and work at the big kind of companies to earn the big money. But they could then actually offer customer service. You could actually have a product that's a verticalized thing that solves a real problem, and use AI to automate loads of stuff. But then when someone has a problem, you actually pick up the phone, because that's either the right thing to do or the thing you choose to do, or something along them lines. So I think there's, but that, and I've said this to a lot of developers, and most don't want to do it. They don't have that desire. And maybe there'll be a forced hand there, or people will retrain. But I think that's the opportunity. I think that's the potential saving grace, and probably for another episode. But I think that's the route in then for the juniors who aren't going to get the exposure that they probably have done over the last 10 years.
Like what you were saying about lies that were sold to us for SaaS, and I think one of the other lies that gets perpetuated by these horrible technology podcasters that tell you that you should be writing your software in certain ways, is that any software that's written should be rewritten every 2 years. And that just wasn't financially plausible for any company, right? Now that's changed, right? We can rewrite stuff really quickly. And again, try not to diverge and slip into other topics that otherwise we'll be here for 8 or 9 hours. But like in the near future, the language that we write our code in isn't gonna matter, right? We're probably going to see. Yeah, I was going to say, you'd write it in English pseudocode type stuff, describe it, and it would just run based on that to some sort of extent. So yeah, I get that. I get that these developers could go off and do their own thing. The problem we've also got though is that there's a large majority of these developers that are introverted developers don't want to talk to people, and they've just used AI to build their product. So why not use their AI to manage their product as well?
100%, and maybe they'll do that, right? And I'm not saying that they have to go off and they have to set up a company and they have to be the founder and the CEO, but someone else can be that person. And when they're budgeting and they're going for investment and they're trying to build a product, instead of having to raise 10 million, a million quid because they need a team of 6, they can raise 200 grand or 100 grand because they need a guy or a girl for 6 months or 3 months or 2 months to build it and to iterate it and kind of go from there. Because of this, technological shift, I think it just opens up a lot more opportunity for us to get, like, there's so many products out there, but we all still seem to use the same products. We're using Riverside to record this podcast, right? We're going to share the stuff on Google Drive. We're going to do this, and this. These are still very much standardized tools because because they're basically one on the whole cost per acquisition thing, and they're trying to make it cheaper and wonderful and all this stuff. But I think actually, there are companies, you see a lot of them in Europe actually, right, where they're just small teams, they just make nice profits and they just build products that they sell for like a one-off fee or for like a decent, a nice kind of monthly amount, like £5 a month, and they're competing against the tech giants. And I think we're going to get a lot more of that. But I think more of that even at like an enterprise level, not just like a podcast app or like a note-taking app. I think you'll have something verticalized that helps lawyers. Actually, no, it does not help lawyers. You have some app that's going to help a nurse, to basically dictate the notes, and turn it into the format that they want. But it'll do it just like that. It'll be so specific to like nurses whose English isn't their first language, but the form is in English. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different, I think, like use cases. And that if you think how many nurses and how many hospitals and how many medical things there are globally, we have and I think this is where it's the golden time, is because we have the first time where we have AI which can accelerate the development and can kind of build reassurance, and you have loads of people who've been doing this stuff for decades, so they have the knowledge to architect and to build product and write code very well, and there's a global market which we have access to, and potentially you can do and serve that from a very small team of people, and I think that potentially unravels like that opportunity, so I think for me, as I guess like a bit of a kind of rounding off for the show, like this golden era is not necessarily about retraining, it's not about starting companies, it's like there is a window of time for people to build stuff that they love, and then they can find other people that love it as well. If it's an enterprise tool, if it's even at their company, it doesn't really matter. The cognitive load of writing code and trying to manage projects and technologies and frameworks and all that stuff, that's all just going to disappear. And actually, the engineering mind that software developers have will get to be really kind of utilized and maximized in this period.
Sure.
Best response ever.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just trying to play the cynical card and see what I could say.
No, this is a happy show. This one.
Yeah. But yeah, you gotta have good dev, bad dev, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're getting at. I don't know if that is sustainable, but I think that the state of the industry, how it's going to change the roles and stuff, I think we pick that up next time, and maybe that's my topic for next episode. How the jobs are changing and what the expectations of the business owner should be from a dev team in the near future.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Until next time.
Cool. So yeah, till next time, make sure to subscribe and
like, subscribe, comment.
Click
The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.